Perennial Wisdom for Daily Life by D.Q. McInerny, Ph.D. The Desacralization of Christmas, December 1996. For the time being, at least, it seems we have to resign ourselves to the fact that Christmas has become a thoroughly commercial affair in this country. The forces of secularization have temporarily carried the day, and Catholics and other sincere Christians must be content with leaving the larger world to its own frivolous devices, while concentrating their efforts on doing all they can to preserve the sacredness of Christmas within their own shrinking communities. For a great many people in contemporary society, Christmas has become essentially a pagan feast. In fact, the very name of the day seems to have become a cause of unease, and more we hear the traditional Merry Christmas greeting substituted for by the bland and non-committal Happy Holidays. Not so very long ago, it was possible to see in our major cities large billboards admonishing us in bold letters to put Christ back into Christmas. I have not heard that slogan for years, and the likelihood of anyone coming across this Christmastide a billboard which bears it would be, I suppose, very slim. And if such a billboard were to appear somewhere, it is probable that it would draw a lawsuit or two, the complaint being that anyone who has the temerity publicly to recommend that the birthday of Christ be recognized as the birthday of Christ is trying to impose his religious views on others. And given the climate of public opinion today, where a mushy and anemic pluralism passes for culture, no greater crime than that can be imagined. The desacralization of Christmas is the public square. In the public square is part of a larger pattern which has been developing in our society for some time, but which seems to have taken an accelerated form in recent years. When society abandons its fundamental commitment to Christianity, as ours has done, something like a religious vacuum is created, and that vacuum is eventually filled by an imitation of authentic religiousness. It is the belief of some of our devout secularists who rejoice over the waning influence of Christianity, that when any society abandons a genuine religious commitment, it then lapses into a state of benign and universally inoffensive neutrality. That is not how it works. We human beings are by nature religious beings. We are naturally oriented towards seeking out and committing ourselves to a supreme good, the possession of which will give meaning and coherence to our lives. Now, the only supreme good that is adequate to our deepest longings is, of course, the one true God. But if we refuse to acknowledge that one true God, it is a law of human psychology resulting from our fallen nature that we will then invariably seek a false God in order to satisfy our ineradicable and irrepressible religious needs. Actually, what usually seems to happen when we abandon God is that we then commit ourselves to a whole pantheon of false gods. As G.K. Chesterton once remarked, when man ceases to believe in God, he does not then believe in nothing. He believes in anything. No one is more helpless in the face of fakery than the man who has deliberately turned his back on the authentic. But the point to be stressed is that when man has rejected the proper object of his belief, God, he will inevitably find other and necessarily unworthy objects of his belief. The society that has abandoned Christianity does not thereby dispense of its deep-set religious needs. Those needs remain, but they are directed at unworthy ends. What is essentially secular, or even frankly pagan, is invested with pseudo-religious status. Witness what has been happening to Halloween over the past decade or so, and the genuinely religious, such as the Feast of the Nativity, is secularized and even paganized. But we need not lose heart. We may not be able at the moment to turn back the tide of secularization, now engulfing us, and which has transformed our public Christmas into a garish and spiritually disorienting spectacle. But what What we can do is quietly and determinedly recommit ourselves to the central significance of the great feast we are celebrating. We can leave all the vulgar hullabaloo behind us and travel in spirit to a crude, totally unpretentious stable outside a little town called Bethlehem, and there find a peace and luminous simplicity of which our tinselly world knows nothing.